Welcome to the third of 4 planned videos that show how you can use the astronomy in Harry Potter to teach actual astronomy and do some fun hands-on arts and craft in the process. Today we're going to be concentrating on centaurs and astronomy. In the second video, we made a model of the Milky Way out of glitter glue, and hopefully you didn't make too much of a mess if you did that. Remember that there were various parts of the galaxy. Remember we had the central bulge of the galaxy where there were slightly older stars and there was a yellow tinge. And then we had the spiral arms, which had two components. We had the bluish areas, which was starlight reflecting off of dust. And then we had the pinkish red areas, which were hot glowing clouds of gas, which were leftovers from star formation and places where baby stars were being born. And then we had the puffy globular clusters, which we made out of pieces of cotton balls, and a yellow star for our sun about halfway out on one of the spiral arms. And again, we noted that if we're stuck inside the Milky Way and we can't really take a selfie, we can't stretch our arm out that long, what does the Milky Way look like? And we talked about the fact that if you look in a dark sky away from city lights, you have this hazy band of light that goes across the sky, which gives its name, the Milky Way, to our entire galaxy. And I teased you that the constellation of Sagittarius is buried here in the part of the Milky Way where it looks densest, because we're looking in the direction of the center of the galaxy. Hopefully you did my homework assignment and you looked up what's actually at the center of the galaxy. But I want to talk a bit more about centaurs today, and especially about Sagittarius. Sagittarius is one of the two centaurs in the sky. We have also the constellation of Centaurus, who is more of a southern constellation. Most of us here in the northern hemisphere don't really get to see him, but we do see Sagittarius, especially in the summer sky. I'd like to start with the story of Sagittarius. If you will look online, you'll see all different versions of the story of Sagittarius. Here's a version that you can share with your children. A long, long time ago, there were creatures called centaurs, half man, half horse. Most centaurs weren't very nice. They were rude, and they fought a lot, and they lied and cheated. But one centaur was better than the rest, and his name was Chiron. He learned many important lessons and skills from Apollo, the sun god, and Diana, the moon goddess. He was very smart, gentle, and kind, and he became the teacher of many princes. One of his students was Hercules, the son of the god Jupiter, and the strongest man in the world. Asclepius, the first doctor, learned how to heal from Chiron. One day, Hercules got into a fight with the bad centaurs, and Chiron watched from a nearby hill. But Hercules didn't recognize his teacher and shot Chiron with a poisoned arrow. Hercules was very sad that Chiron was dead. Jupiter, king of the gods and Hercules' father, turned Chiron into a constellation in the sky to honor him. We call this group of stars Sagittarius. Hercules was later made into a constellation too, but because he made a lot of mistakes in his life, his constellation is upside down. Sagittarius has his bow and arrow ready to kill Scorpius the scorpion if he tries to hurt anybody in the sky. Now, in Harry Potter, centaurs are astronomers. They are the stargazers, the ones who look up. Just to give you two examples, I'm sure you can find more, you Harry Potter fans. Ronan and Bane are talking in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and one of them notes, "Mars is bright tonight." And then we have a line from Hagrid. "Never," said Hagrid irritably, "try and get a straight answer out of a centaur. Ruddy stargazers, not interested in anything closer than the moon." Well, I don't know if that's actually true, but The moon is interesting, and meteors that go through our atmosphere are certainly closer than the moon, and I think centaurs would be interested in them. So we have Sagittarius, who is again a centaur, half man, half horse. And if you look on a typical star map, you might see a very artistic rendition of a half man, half horse shooting a bow and arrow. But if you look at the actual position of the stars, you notice they don't really follow the outline that carefully. I have to admit that I've had great difficulty in trying to take the stars of Sagittarius and make them into a centaur. Most people, when they talk about the constellation of Sagittarius, talk about the teapot. I'm going to add one more line here. And so please do not sing the teapot song. Well, you can sing it to yourself because I don't have to listen to it. But we all know the little teapot song, right? And the teapot has various parts to it. The teapot has a handle, and the teapot has a spout. And the teapot also has a lid, and here's the base of the teapot. And you can think about the steam coming out of the spout of the teapot as representing the Milky Way moving upward from it. So most people talk about the teapot of Sagittarius, but there's more stars than the ones that make up the teapot. One of the drawings I saw online actually convinced me that you could sort of make a centaur out of those stars. So what I do when I've done this with children is I've given them either a completely drawn out centaur like this, which is one of the ways that I've seen Sagittarius drawn out. I must admit that I did put a little dot there for his eye. Or you can do, what you can do is you can take a piece of dark construction paper, and if you don't want to trace it out for them, you can just give them the dots, the corners of those lines, and you can have them trace them together as well. What I've also done is I've either given them stickers with little marks on the piece of paper or put the stickers on the piece of paper itself. And you'll notice that each of the stickers has a different number on it. And those numbers represent what we call the Messier objects. Charles Messier was an astronomer back in the late 1700s who, like many stargazers of his time, if you had your own telescope, one thing you wanted to do was discover comets because you had great bragging rights and the comets were named after you. And Charles Messier was very good at finding comets, but he was also very good, in fact better, at finding fuzzy things in the sky that were not comets. So he kept a list of all of the fuzzy not comets that he found. In his life, there were 103 in his final catalog, and we now know there were probably others that he saw that didn't write down, so you will often see the Messier catalog extended to 110. And today, Messier is more famous for his catalog of not comets than he is for those comets that he found. Because these not comets represent some of the best and easiest objects to find with a backyard telescope. And so we talk about the Messier catalog, and every object on the Messier catalog has a number, like M13, the 13th not comet that Messier found. And there are many of these not comets in the area of Sagittarius because, again, we're looking in the direction of the center of the galaxy. And so we're going to be seeing lots of star clusters and lots of these gas clouds or nebulae. And so it's very easy to introduce this concept of star clusters of different types and nebulae when talking about Sagittarius. Remember that we're also looking in the direction of the center of the galaxy, so I put a red star here to represent the location of the dead center of the galaxy. And again, I won't spoil it because your homework assignment was to go and find out what's lurking at the center of the galaxy. So here we have a young lady to whom, if you notice, I had actually just drawn the little dots. and then I had them connect them. And even though she didn't connect them exactly the way I had on my paper, you can see that she did make a fairly reasonable centaur with a bow. And then again, we have dutifully marked the position of the Messier objects with her stickers and the position of the center of the galaxy. And you can see that I've connected this with a silver Sharpie. You can also connect it if you have any pieces of chalk, essentially anything that will write white lines or bright lines on dark paper. Now, people are saying, wow, you can see all these things with a telescope. What do they look like? Well, remember that any photograph that you see published in a magazine or on the internet, that's the photograph. Your eye is not going to see exactly what the photograph does. In the nighttime sky, the parts of our retina that actually fire mostly are black and white. So when you look at stars, many times people have a hard time seeing star colors. Or if you look at a galaxy or a nebula through a telescope, sometimes people are disappointed because they don't see the pretty colors that you see published in a magazine. That's the difference between the camera and your eye. But it's still cool to see these things with your own eye if you can. So you might look up some of the objects in the Messier catalog and just see how beautiful they are and see some of the facts that we've learned about them. For example, here's M8, the 8th Knot comet. This is called the Lagoon Nebula. This is a place where baby stars have been born, and we have all this leftover hot gas, hot glowing gas, left over from this stellar nursery. M20 is the Trifid Nebula. This one is awesome because there's a lot going on here. Not only do we have a cluster of stars here, but we also have, again, that hot glowing gas. And we have dark dust, which looks like it breaks the nebula into pieces. And that dark dust blocks the light from the hot glowing gas behind it. And then we also have one of these blue reflection nebulas over here where the starlight is bouncing off of dust. M24 is the Sagittarius star cloud. There's actually several Messier objects which are seen in this picture. But the Messier star cloud is not technically a cluster or a nebula. It's a part of the Milky Way that really is dense and stands out. And you can actually see it from a dark site with just your eyes or a pair of binoculars if you go far away from city lights and go out and look in the southern sky, low in the sky in the summertime. This is M55, one of the many globular clusters that we see, and this is a very large globular cluster. It actually looks, if you can see it with binoculars or a telescope at low power, about half the size of the moon. That's how large it looks. In reality, it's much, much bigger than the moon and much, much bigger than our entire solar system. So I invite you to check out the objects in the Messier catalog, not just the ones in Sagittarius, our Centaur, but ones that are in all of the constellations in which we find Messier objects. Not all of the 88 constellations have Messier objects, but there are some constellations that have numerous Messier objects, like Sagittarius and Scorpius, for example. Here are two websites I highly recommend. We have the SED site, which has pictures of each of the Messier objects, and there's a special Hubble page where you have beautiful Hubble Space Telescope pictures, but they don't have all of the Messier objects. As you can see here, it jumps from M5 to M8, for example. As always, comments are welcome. If you're interested in who this handsome gentleman is who shows up at the end of all of my PowerPoints, that is BB. BB is the eclipse chasing bunny. He has been to 5 total solar eclipses with me. And we invite you to check out our website for astronomy at CCSU, www.ccsu.edu/astronomy.